At the pressure that we have seen, the commodities coming under pressures today, the one surprise that I saw that I thought should have been a green but was a red was gold. Are you surprised?
Well, look, over the past few days, gold has actually gone up. You know, on the safe haven, etc. I mean, it reached a high of about 37, I think, 1,237. It has come down about $10. We think that's primarily on dollar strength. So, you know, the dollar has strengthened over the past day, over the past while, and normally when the dollar strengthens, that pushes gold down. So possibly a little bit of that, but we're still sitting at fairly high levels, you know, in the 1,220 thereabouts. So the main theme for gold at this stage pretty much is the safe haven buying, tied to the concerns about the economy, etc.
We'll come back to the safe haven issue, but I want to ask Hein a question around gold today. When you're watching gold today, given the pressure that we saw the metal under today, does that make sense to you?
Well, if I look at the level of the pressure, you know, it didn't look like much. It was very marginal, and especially if you compare it to the markets. So I would say it's most probably because of the holiday season and the doldrums. I don't think there's much demand at the moment, and not too much volumes.
Yeah, I wanted to point out to Hein that you're sitting against a guy who does not believe in the safe haven story.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's what makes the markets interesting.
Indeed. So you've had this guy sitting on the other side of the fence. But what about the other metals? We saw copper under pressure. I guess that makes sense given the fact that you're getting these doubts around the strength of the global economy and around the strength of the recovery and the sickness that we're seeing out of Europe. But surely China should be keeping copper above water there. Well,
you know, what you have at the moment is the market is driven by this negative sentiment. And the market tends to ignore at this stage any sort of fundamental news, discount it very quickly. And the moment you get bad news, you know, you see people hear about a double-dipped recession, and that at the moment is driving the short-term price. So copper is still fairly high. I mean, just a month ago it was at 6.5. It's now sitting, sure, it came from, I think, 7.4, so currently sitting at 7.2 thereabouts. So that movement down most certainly is because of the concerns and the worry, etc. We think it's tied to the macroeconomic situation more than the metal-specific issues.
Are you a double dipper yourself?
No, I'm not.
You don't believe we're likely to see the global economy sliding into recession? If you are not a believer in the double dip scenario, what do you think will keep the global economy away from trouble? We saw numbers coming out of the US suggesting that perhaps the weakness in the US economy is far worse than we have believed.
Well, look, you're going to have news that come out that might be surprises.
Is this market noise?
It's market noise. I think what people will agree is the growth that we thought was going to be there a couple of months ago is most certainly slower than what was anticipated. I mean, the FOMC in US came out again and said, look, we're concerned about the growth. It's not going to happen as fast. So there's most certainly going to be issues around the speed of it. But we don't think that we're going to see a double dip. We do think that, you know, over the next 18 months, we're going to see growth. And on the commodity side specifically, there's a number of areas where that seems to be the case. However, the news at the moment is going to be such that you're going to get bad news and you're going to get people focusing on worries, and that's going to drag prices down.
Hein, I see you heading your head there.
Yes, definitely. There's no direction. There's uncertainty, and but I absolutely agree with you on, and that is that we will move forward very slowly, but probably one step forward or two steps forward, one step backwards, two steps forward, one step backwards, and that's why I said sideways, but a positive sideways for quite a while until there is direction which way the market wants to go, and that could take quite a while.
What about the surprise strength that we saw in the German economy? The numbers that came out of Germany suggested a very, very strong economy indeed, and that pulled European numbers on growth at least very, very strongly up. Is that a blip? And are we likely to see the issues that have plagued Europe coming back and becoming a factor again in the markets and the commodities that we're talking about? Shall I throw that to you?
You know, I'm not an economist, so
sure.
Speaking for Germany specifically, yeah. I cannot answer in that. I can give you a general comment, and sure. That is that, you know, across and looking at commodities, yeah. Looking at both oil demand and looking at industrial activity, most certainly we see growth. It is going to vary, and you are going to get surprises probably to both sides. But as for Germany specifically, I'll leave it to Hein.
Well, I think what we've heard in the past week about Germany, what we've heard from China, overtaking Japan as the second biggest economy in the world, I think it shows where those two economies stand in terms of, in relative terms, to the rest of the economies of the world. And I think when one wants to invest, one should start to look at the growing economies, which is China and which is Germany, instead of those that is at the top and looks like they're sliding or looks like they're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Now, do those two numbers suggest then perhaps a change in the view on the outlook for commodities?
No, not really. I mean, at the moment, the sentiment is negative, and the short-term concerns are most certainly there. We do believe that there is demand. We have seen that. It has become a slightly varied picture amongst the commodities. On oil, we see demand coming through. I think OECD, for instance, we've had 4 months in a row of oil demand growth.
Sure.
So whereas that doesn't mean the world is now going to explode in growth. It does mean it's not a picture which is, in total despair. Copper, for instance, we see China growth still there. I agree that China is going to be one of the big players, obviously, in commodities because it's such a big consumer. No, we are not double-dip people here.
And no double dippers here, indeed. That's where we live, gentlemen.